Hello folks, welcome to the Node.js Backend Masterclass with me. Hello, hi. And I am back here streaming of and talking about Node.js and how to set up a Node.js application for fun and profit probably, or just to make sure that nothing blows up, which is more or less the topic of this workshop. Here's a quick poll. What type of API do you prefer working with? And if the poll is on Discord, we'll talk about the results later on in the poll. Little bit about me. I'm part of the Node.js Technical Steering Committee. I'm a board member of the OpenJS Foundation. I've done consultancy for a long time. I have a nice Platformatic t-shirt. So here you go. It is a nice Platformatic t-shirt for you. Okay. So, and so on and so forth. I have a newsletter, so if you want to learn about stuff from me, you can check my newsletter. So also, the software that I wrote is probably on your laptop multiple times. So I don't know, this kind of stuff. So let's go and start and talk about Node.js and how to structure your Node.js application, which is actually a very tricky business, to be honest. And it's what you need to do all the time. And in my experience, a lot of people actually make a mess out of it. Okay, so let's talk about this. First of all, the first pillar of Node.js development is do test-driven development. Okay, Node.js, JavaScript in general, is a scripting language. Or even if it was not a scripting language, you need to compile it anyway. You really want to do TDD, okay? Test-driven development. You want to write tests, especially if you're writing server component. So anything on the server, you want to write tests. You really, really want to write tests. So please write the tests, okay? Repeat it with me. Write the tests. So that's what we would do. We are talking about testing. Then the second thing, which is critical, it's avoid global state. And we're going to go through and talk about everything, and talk about the state of your application and why that matters, and why you really don't want any global state in your app. Then you want to split the business logic into many modules. This does not seem hard, okay? But apparently it is. So let's go through all of it, okay? So the first one is the pillars of TDD. You want to have a failing test, you want to make the test pass, and you want to refactor. Now, most people that do tests and write tests forget completely that you need to refactor. Like refactoring is actually one of the most important part of this, okay? You want to clean up the mess you have made. So please, okay? You need that. By the way, if you wonder, types are not tests, but also you can write tests for your types. So good luck, okay? And I write tests for my types, especially when you do TypeScript magic. You really want to write tests for your types. So, what kind of test do you want to write? Most of the time, I typically recommend teams and developers to do not mock the happy path, okay? So generically, you want a test in your system that go from the top to the bottom of the stuff that your team control. If that means a database, yes, you want to eat the database through. Okay, you want to go top to bottom, go through all of it, which is actually very important. And you don't want to use any mocks for this, mostly because you want to prove that things works. So that, for example, if you change the database schema, your test should fail. Hey, yes, if you change database schema, the test should fail. If you change the database schema and the test does not, and your test does not fail, that test is almost useless. So please, consider that. And what you need to mock, and you want to mock to test edge cases. Okay, a lot of the time, if you need to test an edge case, it's to some extent it's hard to reproduce all possible edge cases with just with full passing through the database and everything. So you might want to mock some of your components, and this is helpful and useful also to keep your tests super snappy, which we want. I typically do not focus on the internal implementation, but on the API. So I tend to, so what's covered in the API in my test is the public API of the component, of the library, of the module that I am working on, which is actually very important. Then it's avoid global state everywhere. Again, I have probably mentioned this quite a few times already, that you must not use global state. And you'll probably see me talking about this even more time. Do not use global state on servers, okay? Now, global state is okay in the browser, but don't do it on the server, okay? And there is a good question in the chat. What about how shouldn't it be stubbed? It depends. I typically stub that because most of the time I use a service like Auth0 or a JWT, an authentication server, an external one. If I have an external service, it's external. It's not governed, maintained by my team. So therefore, I mock or stub it or whatever. Okay. By global state, this is a good question. What does it mean, global state? We are going to talk about that in a moment. So let's talk about tests and we talk about global state and you will be more clear. Yes, a singleton is global state. So yes, don't do singletons. So, a question for you. This is another quick poll that we're going to do. And do you use Jest? And choice A is yes. Choice B is no. And now we're going another poll if you are using Jest or you're not using Jest. So let's see. I want to know the counter. Please run it. I see a lot of people not voting. So okay. Good. A lot of people using Jest. Now, hopefully, I would be. Oh, ciao, Francesco. I would be. I'm sorry for buzzing you with NodeTap. So, this is. I just want to clarify what's the problem of using Jest in Node.js, not for React or other things. Okay. So some stuff that I'm going to talk about are specifically and that apply specifically to Node.js and not, for example, React. Okay, so let's go through the problem. So let me be clear, do not use Jest for Node.js development. If you're writing a Node.js server, please do not use Jest. You're going to cause pain to yourself. So yes. Why? Let's explain to it. Look at this code example on the right of your screen. So, if I'm reading a non-existent file, it throws an error. Is that error instance of error? Okay. This is the question. Yes, this is it. So, this is the fundamental question. Do you think it would, that the error that Node.js will throw be an instance of error or not? This is a question, you know. Tell me, is anybody that is very strongly convinced? Okay. Yes, for Jest, this is not true. An error is not an instance of error, because Jest has different globals than Node. It's beyond me to understand why you want to do this, but please don't use this for Node. Because if you have an error on a socket, or an error on a database connection, or a lot of other stuff like that, you will not be able to use instance of on it. I discovered this problem inside the GraphQL codebase for the first time. It was such a pain. I spent so much time on it. So please don't do this. Don't do this to yourself. Okay, this is super bad. So errors are not errors in Jest. You know, you might not believe me because I'm putting screenshots, so of course it's true. So we can actually run the code, which I actually recommend you to do things all the time. So let's move back to this. I am actually zooming in a little bit, so it's a little bit bigger for all of you. It's here we go. Okay, so it's probably bigger enough. Okay, here we go, and yay. So okay, and I can go less cd no Jest. Okay, so this is your test with read file sync and Jest. And in package.json, what we do is nothing. Okay, so what we can do here is npx Jest. And this is not, it says that an error must be an instance of error, which is the most absurd thing that you can do in your code. You cannot trust instance of with globals, which makes it a lot of problems overall. So don't do this to yourself, okay? You should not be doing this to yourself, by the way. So yes, essentially this is tricky stuff, tricky business, but truly don't do this. You know, this is so problematic. Now, there are a few options here. You could customize Jest to not have this behavior, okay? But also, you know, you're probably defeating the purpose, and it's not the default, so I'm not convinced really that, you know, yeah. So anyway, what are the alternatives for Jest, okay? So the first one that was mentioned by alternatives that you can use are, for example, a very popular one is Vitest or Vitest, Vitest. Then there is Node.js. There is this module called Jest Light Runner, which was done by a friend of mine, the maintainer of Babel, one of the maintainers of Babel, which it's actually a super fun module. And it's basically, it's Jest without all the problems that Jest has. It's great. I recommend using, but there is also a module called Tape, which is great. Mocha, old school stuff. Okay. All the things. Yes, Jasmine. Oh my goodness, Jasmine. You know that Jest comes from Jasmine, and Jasmine is one of the worst possible code base ever written in JavaScript. I actually contributed to the thing. Yeah, it's a mess. It's a total mess. Okay, it's all being built on top of a big global state, which is even, you know. Okay, so let's go through them very quickly. So cd Vitest, and this is the same code with Vitest, and you can do cat. Oh no, this does not work. So and npx Vitest, and here we go. This works and is passing. Okay. Now the problem with Vitest, for example, is you need to run it with Vitest. Like, you cannot just run the file on its own. I don't really like this. I don't really like having to pass through a runner, for example. I recommend to use a tool that I can just do node file to do it. Okay, so my main recommendation, if I would start something new, a new project today, is to use node test. So I'm going to copy the bug, and yeah, here and here, instead of using Vitest, we can do from node test, and then I need assert from node assert, and here I want assert strict equal, and I want err instance of error to be true. Okay, this is nice and simple. And node bug. Ooh. Sorry, making a mess of things. Okay, yes, cd vitest node bug test 2. Now, okay, I'm going to show you a difference, and I'm going to put the difference between node test and vitest on top of each other. Okay, I'm going to run node npx vitest on top and node test run on the second one. Okay, and yes, you can see the difference here. One completes the test in 0.77 millisecond, the other one 2 milliseconds, and the duration, total duration for this is 52 milliseconds versus half a second for vtest. Okay, sorry. It's great. Vitest is great. I love Vitest. Okay, I'm just saying, you know. It has a lot more features than the node test runner, so, you know. But the node test runner is there. It's probably my main recommended approach to testing Node.js applications. So yes, Node works with tests, so you could do. So you could even do touch bug test 2.mjs and it's running it again. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, great. Yeah, it's going to be recorded, so I'm going to recording it. It is the native node test runner. Yes, it is. So yes, please use this if you are, but please don't use Jest. Okay, it's part of Node 18, so this is Node 18. So, this is a good question. You can use TS Node with it. So technically, you could use TS Node to do that, or you could have a TypeScript watcher building the things on top of each other. So yes, TSC --watch do the trick, and then yay! And then you have a combination of things doing stuff all the time and getting things doing. For coverage, okay, if you need coverage, you can install C8. And you can do C8 node test 2 and npx. And here you go, you have code coverage. Also, code coverage is shipping. So Node 20 have some experimental flags for code coverage, which will do the trick too. Again, all yeah. So yes, please. Okay. It's great. Okay. So let's talk about another big problem of applications built. So it's a good question, RMS. RMS is asking, is really safe using Node 20? My answer personal is don't use Node 20 yet. Wait until October when it becomes LTS. It's not ready. Or it is ready, but maybe. So yeah. Node 20 in prod. Open bugs on Node.js/Node. So I don't know. I could not run my software Node 20 up until 20.4.0 because of all the bugs that were there. So, you know, it was released last week. So, oops. Okay, so we are slowly getting there for Node 20. Okay, and it's still missing a few features. And one of my friends will tell that those features that are missing are actually a lot. So anyway, it's great. Happily ever after. So anyway, the key question, another big problem is that Jest, or generically Jest, allows you to write this concept of mocks, Jest mocks, and you can mocks full modules. You should not really mocking full modules. Like, mocking full modules is what I called, it's a big anti-pattern overall, because if you start mocking them, you basically you're saying that there is your code as some unobservable behavior of something in between, which is actually makes it very hard. Now, it kind of can be okay to test certain things, but typically not as typically if you really need to test them, especially some error paths and so on and so forth. So don't tend to mock modules. Like, I recommend not to mock modules. And this is, but look, if you, in case if you want to talk about mocking modules, so you should not really mocking modules, okay? And if you want to mock modules, we can also support it. Just call my friend Colin, my colleague Colin, just landed a new feature here on the test runner, which is the mocks. Oh no, it's not. Yeah, no test. Yes, there is the mocks. Okay, but there is also mocking modules, I think. Or it's if it's not here, it's totally coming anyway. But don't mock, okay? Don't mock the modules. It's actually very hard. It's typically when it's a component like AWS, I ended up writing the things, writing a little library on top to abstract it and then mock that. And we are going to talk about it, how to do that in a second. So that should probably be clearer. Yes. So this is a good point. There is somebody. Yeah. So you're saying that is not a problem for you. Well, half of the time we have done extensive work on Fastify and other libraries to make sure that you could test them with Jest, so that everything is correctly wrapped and managed in a way that's not going to cause you problems. But overall, when those kind of problems percolate, you're actually going to be in quite some significant pain. I don't want my test framework to mess with my code. So it does not look like a major issue to you, probably. I'm just telling you, I don't recommend it. So half of the people on the Node.js team probably will say not recommend it. So this is what I'm saying, okay? So it's do not use global state, okay? This is the next step, and it is a problem. Half of you is doing it. So if you use singletons to hold state, you cannot refactor your code at all, and there's no clear boundaries between your modules. Let's talk a little bit about that and explain why it's so problematic that you should probably not be using this and do something else. Half of the people that I've seen is actually doing this kind of setup here. So let's talk a little bit about a typical use case of applications. And the typical use case, so let me disable my face here. Here you go. And a lot of people would, have a bunch of modules and have a shared.js file, or a db.js file, or a logger.js file, or all those kind of things, where there is a single global object, which is everything is passing through it, and it's a single module, okay? And you get that module by just requiring that file, and you think that is unique, and I'm actually going to prove you that is not unique, and you're going to be there are problems here, okay? And this create a lot of spaghetti code long term. So this is unique in case you're doing this, in case everything is local. However, the moment you start extracting code into multiple modules and splitting it across teams, everything becomes really problematic. And you might have situations where modules are not the same, especially if you use different package managers and so on. This is actually kind of the norm. So I am going I'm going to explain. Yes, I'm talking about the DB connection. You should not put the DB connection in your exports, okay? And it's going to cause you problems overall. So okay, let's go and explain this and go through it in code. And let me start this scene switcher so I can switch easy. Okay, here we go. So this is our v-test things. Okay, so let's go in cd global state. Okay, we have here are a few modules. We have a.js. Actually, I think we can write it from scratch. So make the global state live, cd global state live, global state package JSON. Ouch. Why? Yeah, global state live. Sorry, making a mess of myself as usual. cd make dir global state live, cd global state cd global state live. Okay, now package JSON. And okay, so let's start writing a file called share.js, and we do export default mass.random. This is absolutely a random file name, so you know, if a random export, so you should be good. Now we can here in our global state live, we add an a.js. A is import num from share.js. Great. Now it's console log a num, and we are copying this to B, and this is B. And now if I do all.js, in which I import a.js and b.js, and I run it, node all or cd global state live node all.js, you can see that the number that I generate is actually the same everywhere. It's great. Okay, so what the heck are you saying, Matteo? You said that this can be different. So let me show you why it's different. So let's say that instead of having a share file, we have a share module. So okay. Oh, I exited Tmax. Great. Okay. So here I have a shared module, and in this shared module I am copying. Well, I need a package JSON here, and here I want a main, which is my index.js file, and here I am moving my index.js file here. Okay, this is a module. Okay, then I am putting here another module for A, and A, as I am copying this up, and I moved it. Good for me. So not good. But okay. So then I need to move this up inside a index.js. Great, right? And here, well, here I don't want to record this. I want to actually load it up as a module. So what I need to do is add it as a, I'm going to fake having a dependency, but I can, express a mongoose. Don't use mongoose, folks. We can talk about mongoose later. So here I can just say shared, and shared is just a local module. It's shared. So now if I'm going into my, now let's do a new window here, and so global state live. If I'm going inside A, I run npm I, you can see that now I have node modules, and my node modules as a shared folder. So good. Now I'm going to cheat badly and create a folder B, then cpa.index in B, cpa.package.json in B, cdb. Okay, here I'm calling this B. Okay, and I can remove B. All can just do index.js, index.js. Okay, now here I need to npm install again, right? I have installed the module twice, but it's the same module, right? Is it the same module? Now, if I run node all.js, it's, oh yeah, it's great. Everything is fine because it's resolved correctly. It was the same. Why this? This is the same, and global. What mistake did I make? Node all. Sorry. Share. A, B, C. Oh, yeah. So if you see here, we have our node modules. And here the modules are laid up in the same way. But here they are identical. Cool. So as I said, this is you can have the same module loaded multiple times in different ways, or it's hard to some extent. It's hard to predict or know why and how this is being set up, and so just be very careful in assuming that. And if I run Node, this is actually Node.js, and this is the same. It's the same. Very interesting to see. It's shared. Oh, it's shared. And it's shared. Very interesting. Let's install it again. You know why? I have no idea. So cdb node npm I, and then node all. Here is the same, but here, which are the same modules, they node all is totally different. You know why? Okay, let me explain it to you. So here you can see that A and B, these have been are links. Okay, you see that it's a link. This is actually a link. So if you go inside the folder in B, ls-ll modules, you see that shared is actually a link. Okay, you see that it's a link. Perfect. So if I'm removing node module shared and instead gd node modules and copy over -r. Okay, and now they are different. Makes no sense. Okay, there's nothing, because there's nothing in the module names that tells you that they are identical. Okay, so hopefully I tried to explain this. This is and this is the fact that this is one of the key fundamental problems of that you cannot know exactly if they are the same or not. Okay, and there's a good poll idea, which poll, what package manager do you use? And let's go choice A, npm, choice B, yarn, choice C, pnpm, choice D, turbo. Here you go. And now you can decide. So hopefully I tried to, this explains it all. Okay. Yes, exactly. So yarn is a good one. Just to complicate things, there is yarn classic, yarn 2, yarn 3. What is? I think Turbo is a package manager. Turbo, they launched something on Turbo, I think, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Anyway, you try. Oh, you don't know which yarn, so you probably use yarn classic. Yarn 2, whatever. Okay, I hopefully you saw that it's just a Schrodinger cat. Okay, you cannot trust your package manager to do your thing. So npmi is actually, you see it's doing ... so it's resolving to, it's creating a link, but this is completely up for grabs. Okay, you are basically relying on an incident of your package manager to resolve them to the same module, which is something that you should not be doing. This is the problem that we are talking about. Okay, so hopefully this makes some sense, and because of that you cannot put, I don't know, the logic that exports the database inside a module, because if you do that, then you will have you will end up 2 instances if different modules requires it at the same time. So this is actually problematic. Okay, this is clear-ish on why it's resolving to the same folder, but just by accident. Okay, like if you go inside here, so if you go inside A and you go npmi, it's creating a link. Okay, this is a link. It's a link between this and this one. It's a symlink, and this is a problem. So it's a shortcut. Yes, that's close. Yes, absolutely, that's a shortcut. So yay. Okay, hopefully I tried to explain it. So if you try to split your applications into multiple modules, into multiple things, you want your modules to be something that you instantiate them and move things around. You don't want a global export with state, such as, for example, a database connection or your config even, okay? So that's part of the problem. The solution, this is recorded, yes, this is recorded, Mosharif, so you will be able to watch the recording. I'm doing the recording, hopefully. Everything is done, running on my computer, that's doing the streaming, the recording, all sorts of things at the same time. MacBooks are great, okay? So, so what we are doing here is dependency injection is not a bad word. This is the title of the slide. So my recommended way of solving this problem is structure your application using a concept like dependency injection, or options or constructors or things like that. Now let's talk a little bit about this pattern. So what you want really is you might want to structure your code in a way that you have a function that returns an object. And that function takes a list of options, which includes typically the output of other functions. And by composing them, yes, it's a factory function. Yes. It's a factory function. So you can compose things correctly in this way. And in fact, if you structure it in this way, where you have the service start, you can actually start your service and stop it. So, okay, so let's do a little bit of an example for that, okay? So this I can close. Okay, so let me show you. So this is an example of we have a main file which it's divided into you have a function called build get token and build do something, and the build do something need the get token function. So what I am doing here is I'm calling build get token to get token and a stop function, and then build do something to get the get token object. And here essentially it's how I set things up. And that's kind of it, okay? There is nothing much on that topic to do that. It's as it is. It's you can call something, you can call get token, and you can stop them at the end. So here you go. Filippo is I don't know where is Filippo. There is Filippo. Filippo, let you know. Post your handle in chat because I don't know what's your handle here. Anyway. So anyway, this is a way of doing things. I really like the functional aspects of JavaScript, and which is of course, oh, here we go. Here is Filippo. Okay, Phil. Perfect. So this is a functional aspect of JavaScript that I like a lot, and this is what I recommend. Of course, somebody will say that they want to use classes, and you can actually use classes for the exact same topic, and you can have a class to do it. And yes, this is the same logic, more or less. So, does it make sense? This is more or less the way this is structured is how Fastify works and how Fastify is set things up. And this I'm going to explain why Fastify is set up this way, because in this way you can structure your application and attach things via decorator. We're going to talk about that in a few moments, so hopefully that will be a little bit more clear. So the question is, why should we split into multiple packages at all? Okay, and this is a good question to always be asking. Is Matteo mad that is asking me to split my application and doing all those shenanigans to get things going and setting things up in this way? Now, the solution here is to split your application, splinter your app into multiple modules, into multiple things, and all things will be solved. And but it's here we go. And but I'm still here. Hello. And what you have is when you have a modular view controller application, it's kind of like what popularized that pattern of exporting a database connection is this architecture. And this architecture is actually wrong and bad. I'm sorry. It can only work for creating big monoliths that are hard to scale in terms of complexity. Okay, because when you're creating something, if you're structuring your app within the boundary of 3 components, models, views, and controllers, you have very few buckets to attack complexity. Okay, why? Okay, let me explain. You need to write a new piece of functionality. So it's either you're putting it in the models bucket, or in the controller bucket, or in the views bucket. Oh, wait a second, I'm not doing views anymore. We're just doing APIs. Whoop, no, there are no more views. Okay, so we have models and controllers. Oh, okay, should I put in controllers or models? Well, I don't know, controller sounds just like a little bit of my API router or whatever, so not in controllers. I'm putting it in models. Okay, everything is a model now. And in the MVC architecture, everything is a model most of the time. And very quickly, very soon, you end up having 2,000 models, and you don't understand what the heck is going on in your code. And you have a nice piece of spaghetti code served into your hands. And this is a little bit kind of the problem. So, sorry, here we go. So, hopefully that makes some sense. I don't know, have you got any questions regarding this bit? Hopefully you liked it, okay? You know, it's actually good. This is a good question from RMS. Do you do something like project code review in one-on-one session in order to help anyone growing or evaluate assumption? Even a consultancy, I don't know. I feel most of the time I create things that I never got real feedback. So something that I do, if it's open source or stuff, you can come join my Twitch stream, and if you show up my Twitch stream and says, Matteo, let's review this together, we can probably take a look together. You know, it's as good as any. It's something that we can do there live if you have a piece of code that you want to talk about, and then yes. Yes, essentially. Consultancy might be an option, but at this point in time, I don't have much time, so it's typically not possible. But the Twitch stream, yes, absolutely. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about the structure of your application, okay? The MVC is, most of the time, is implemented not correctly, and you know, okay. How do you do that? How do you solve it? So this is a good question on Express. Yeah. So here we go. So we have back on the slides. So the typical solution, the way you want to structure your code, and potentially you could do that with a lot of small MVC apps, whatever, is to divide your application into by features or domain logic so that it's actually spread across everything, okay? This works extremely well, and I am actually, you know, this is something very, very nice and clean, and you can do a lot of things with it in ways that you would not, you know, expect to some extent. It just scales well with complexity, okay? You could implement this with Express if you code things in a certain way, definitely not as the scaffold set it up, that set it up for you, Okay, so you could potentially do something like that with Express. Express is not the main blocker here for this, but the default structure definitely is. So you need to do a little bit of, and you will lose a lot of performance if you try to do this with Express, which is part of the problem. So don't do that with Express. But you know, I express my opinion. Oops. So what you do here is you structure your application by domain, features, and so on and so forth, or services, or whatever you want to call them, and each one of them with the same routes. In fact, this step is actually the first one to actually go and do microservices. So the moment you have divided your core into multiple domains, then it's easy to say, oh, I'm packing all this code that is my domain and stick it up in one process, okay? And then scale my application in that way. It's great. It works beautifully, and it mostly solves all the problems. So of large-scale Node.js development, it's great, okay? And it's something that would work very well for me. So, and part of all of this was why we created Fastify and how things are set up in Fastify. So you see that Fastify plugins and stuff use a lot of those same concepts. So in fact, with Fastify, it's very easy to use. You can just use it as a basic application router, whatever. But it also have a concept of plugins, and this is actually the starting point of structuring your code in that specific way. Now, the Fastify is built to do this kind of pattern, but you can adopt that same pattern that we talked about in all other frameworks, essentially. We could do a lot of shenanigans to implement the same thing with Express or Koa. It's possible, okay? It's just a huge amount of work to do it. So the typical structure that let me remove my face. The typical structure that you want for your system is you want to have your application, your main Fastify application that is set up so that you have your routes here, and so you have some shared logic, and then some routes, and then you have your main, which essentially is just executed if if that file is the entry point. So if you look at it closely, I flipped too many slides. Okay. If we look closely here, we have the concept of decorator. So this decorator is it had a method to my function, to my application here. And typically in Fastify we store a database connection or the config as a decorator of your app. And note that this utility Fastify plugin allow us to share these decorators with other plugins. So it's great. Also, we have an on-close hook to be able to stop things, because you want to stop things correctly after this is complete. And inside my routes, what we can do is I can access the decorator. So there is a greeting decorator, and I can access it here, app.greeting. And as you can see here, then I have my on-close hook. So those two things are mostly identical, but one has this Fastify plugin FP concept that here I don't have, because in this case, so this is, we say it is completely encapsulated, so that anything that you define here is not going to be shared and reused and so on. So it's very close to an hexagonal architecture, yes, in most terms are possible. It's if you think of Nest is a big monolith, creates a big monolith, and I want something that can scale and be divided across multiple applications easily when it's kind of the yeah, cool. So how do you test a Fastify app? It's actually super easy. How do you do it? It's, wait, let me restore my big face. Here we go. And yeah. Cool. So how do you test a Fastify app? Well, you call app.inject. It's actually super easy and super nice way to do it. So app.inject allow you to take the application that we've just done and call it. Super easy. And we can use vtest, but you can also use node test, and it's actually a greater, even better combination, to be honest. But you know, so the typical recommended project structure that I do for a Fastify application is to structure it in this way. We have a plugins folder with, this is the shared logic, and we have a routes folder with that can be nested. And typically we can set this up so that it provides file system based routing, because this is something that a lot of people likes. And then I have test files for each. So this is essentially what we called a modular monolith. And I have a long talk about this, so this is just a few slides from it. And I think it's actually very worthwhile for you to take a look. Okay, so hopefully that is great, and so on. So the first one is you want to identify the domain, and yes, we can have the link for the talk. So modular. Okay, here we go. Here we go. All of this is covered in your book. Some of it, yes. Some of it, less so. All of it is covered, yes. But it's probably structured in a slightly different sense, because if you are writing a book, it's this thick, and is this thick, the book? Where is it? Okay. Sorry, it's this thick. The book is this thick, so you can actually get it. You can actually do the book, okay, and explain things in a long time. This is condensed form of my experience. Cool. Okay, so this is the talk, and I really like this talk, and you should take a look at the talk. Essentially, take a look. It's actually very good, and hopefully it makes some sense to all of you. So the first thing that I said, structure your application as to identify the domain of your system. So again, this is the topic. Structure your code in folders around your domains. This is my recommendation. So if you have multiple people working on your teams, and you are structuring, you can structure your applications across multiple folders, so that it's separated by domains, and all the interaction between those domains happens within using functions. Do not use joins. Okay, if you're writing a database, do not use joins. And I'm going to repeat this very closely, looking at the camera, very intimate. If you are writing a modular monolith with multiple subsystems maintained by different teams, you really don't want to use, to have your SQL queries or your queries go and fetch data from the database of another team. Don't be that person, don't do that. Okay? Am I clear? Perfect. So Fastify allows you the concept of using plugins and decorators to share the code, so you can attach your services and stuff to the Fastify instance, and then share the code between multiple domains. Okay. Yes, design, James, you are absolutely fantastic. So, if multiple teams using the same database, you should ask yourself some questions. This is not okay. So, it's a starting point. It's that term. It is actually a good slide. Let me see if I can find it at all. So it's Brandolini Big's talk. No, Zio Brando. There is a phenomenal Zio Brando. No. So Zio Brando Code Motion. Okay, and Alberto Brandolini. So this friend of mine is Alberto Brandolini. He lives nearby here. He is yes, I think this one might be it. Let me see. Let me 3, 2, 1, go, skip. Let me fast forward it. It's no, probably not. Probably not. He did this phenomenal talk, and it's a phenomenal architecture, and it's not great. Okay, and it's but yes, okay. Yeah, its shared database is actually a really bad pattern. If you think yes, don't do this. This is actually super bad. Don't do this. Okay. Don't do this. Literally, don't. Okay. It is even written it. Development time coupling. This coupling and additional coordination slow development. Like literally is written here. Don't do this. This is the answer. Don't do this. Okay. Yeah. So it is one of, so it's a prerequisite of a microservice to split your database. Okay. So anyway, this is part of the problem. I don't know. There is a good talk from Brando about this. I don't know where it is. I need to ask him. Okay. But it's a really bad. It's a phenomenal slide. Okay. So, and let's see on Splash if I can find a good picture of it. And yes, these are the apps. Okay, and it's literally what they eat is the data. Like this is actually a good one. What they eat are the database. So yes, don't do that. Okay, it's not great. So anyway, this is the gist of that topic. So I have a demo that is all these modular monolith. However, I am probably running a little bit low on time, so I will not do the full live coding demo. I'm going to just blast through, and but we have some time. But I have more slides, so let's see what we can do. So here, CD modular monolith. Okay. So this is my module. It's part of the talk. It's part of that demo, and yeah, we need to talk about DNS. So. Okay, this is so the typical simple. Look at this folder here. We have the simple. This is a simple app, which is typically structured using using Fastify. So we have our server.js, which loads a build function from app. And this is actually a nice trick. Oh, one more thing that I should have included in the list of things to never do. Do not use Node.env, okay? You have, let me repeat it clearly so that you cannot, do not use Node.env. Node_env is one of the worst anti-pattern that was ever done by the Node.js ecosystem and community. It's not part of Node Core. Node Core did not create Node_env. This was created by Express and a lot of other modules that pick these up, and they would run things differently if Node_env was set to production. Now, there is no way in which you want to test or verify your application in anything but Node_env production if some of those modules are built to use that. So don't ever do this, okay? If you are running a Node.js application and by chance you are running any of those modules, you should set that environment variable as Node_env equals production and forget about it. And if there is any environment specific configuration, you need to set it up using the 12-factor pattern, blah 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 blah, so that it's just their own environment variables. There is no use the staging config now or the production config now. So please never ever use Node_env equals development or equals staging equals whatever. Don't set it to production and forget about it. It's one of the worst possible things that you can think about. So yes, thank you very much. Please don't do it. Do yourself a favor, okay? Great. So let's go back and talk about the code. Look, this is actually one of my favorite patterns. So basically, you want to, if you're running Fastify or any other application, you want to have colorized logs or human-friendly logs when you're developing things. And if you do that, you want to do that kind of colorized stuff, right? Well, how do you do that with Fastify and Pinot? Use something called Pinot Pretty to do it. There is another module called one line logger or something. So this is a good question, web coder. What to do if my config depends on Node_env flag? Refactor your application, man. This is going to be so much problematic for you at any scale, so don't, okay? Refactor your app. You want to, yes, okay? By the way, there are a lot of folks here in the chat from a consulting company called Nearfirm, so you can ask them to help you out. So just so that, yeah. Yeah, please. Okay, so what you do, and this is my recommendation, is if you have specific stuff you want to either detect them from the environment or, for example, have specific environment variable configuration for it. So one of the tricks is to use something called .env, and .env allows you to write a .env file that will include, and here we can show that there is no .env file in this stuff, but that could be. A .env file enables you to load those configurations from a .env file, which will remove the need of having environment specific like staging or whatever. You could use that file. And by the way, that's one of the reasons why I recommend not to use Apollo 2, but that's a different topic. So anyway, this is don't trust modules that are written around that pattern. So my trick in that case is, well, I don't need any configuration file lines for checking if it's if I need to colorize logs or not. I could just use human-friendly logs whenever there is a human attached to my program. In that case, in Unix, this is called a TTY, so I can check process stdout.stdout.isTTY, and if that is true, I can just attach a transport to Pinot and magically have pretty logs in development, but processable logs in production. Easy. And I create my app, and then I use this pattern called close with grace to shut things down in a good sensible way. So hopefully the close with grace trick allows me to do, for example, Control C stuff. So, and when my application is going down, so I could do node server, and then I could, if I Control C it, you can see that the module is shutting down. Now, if I do telnet or nc, okay, I opened an nc connection and I hit Control C, you see that now it's thinking about it, okay, because it's trying to shut down my connection, and after a bit it will give up and just everything will close. Okay, so and hopefully that is it's a good pattern, okay, and it enables things to gracefully close. Okay, so here then we have, oh sorry, we have this other thing. Okay, so then I am going with my app, and in my app, in my main application, I typically structure it across a build function that create my system, and I load folders, and folders are loaded with autoload. Autoload just loads all the plugins on those folders and in memory. Now, autoload is incompatible with bundling. So if you bundle your server, you cannot use autoload. These two things are completely incompatible with each other, so you're on your own. But don't bundle your server, you don't need it most of the time. All the advantages you got are not really useful. Minus serverless, but that's a different topic. So you have autoload and you have plugins, you have autoload and you have routes. So we are great, and we can load those two things. And consider, note that when we are using autoload and we use multiple folders, you will have the name of the folder will become part of your path when you defining your system. So basically this works. We also have an inventory module plugin here, which is great, and we have an inventory function. So what we can do is we could run, let's do another window. So we could run our server, and then we can curl okay, and then catalog products, let me see, and here we go. You can see the stuff that we got, and note that this module is calling the inventory. Okay, we can also put in the inventory directly, and we could call inventory product 42, and we got the data for product 42. Okay, does it make sense? Yes, there are. So I posted it in here. So sorry, there is this repo. Here we go. This is one, and the other one is here we go. So you can follow along. Okay, so going back here, we are doing this now. A solution to this case could be to structure our application in a slightly different way, and we can still have our server. The server is identical, and we can have our app, and our app is the same as before, but we are just loading them from modules. And you see that we are setting here encapsulate false and max depth 1. And we do, now you see that we have catalog and routes, and each one of those modules and the index.js file, which essentially sets things up. Now the inventory though, what we are doing in the inventory is we are defining it in a way that it also decorates stuff. So it supports its own route, but it also decorates it with an inventory object that then can be used by the catalog. How does it work? Well, let's go in cd modular, and now we could node server, and now you can see it has the same route structure, in fact, and if we run the same curl as before, it all works exactly the same. And this is it's great. Okay, yeah, so it just works the same, but in this way we have structured our application, and these can actually be their own modules if we want to, or their own little Fastify apps. I can take them and move them around and even deploy them separately if we want to. Okay, now if you look at this server file, it does a bunch of things. If we could do actually the same with Platformatic if you want. And what does Platformatic do? Well, it's just a lot of scaffolding already set up for you for Fastify handling. And with Platformatic, you could you see there is no server file. So the way we start this is we do plt start, and it will automatically start our app. And now we can actually do the same stuff we were doing before. And where is the other core? Same code as we were using before, same structure with everything, but much less boilerplate from all intent and purposes. So, which I think is great. Okay. Now I haven't tested the runtime demo lately, but it should work. So there is also another way to. But also, if we do Fastify, if we do the Platformatic route, it sets up already a bunch of stuff for us. So, for example, we could open up. We have automatic Open API generated, so pretty good, right? So we can get these things up very easily. It's nice. And also there is another way in which you can sync things up with Platformatic, which is by using what we call the Platformatic runtime. And the Platformatic runtime, it essentially allows you to run multiple Fastify applications as they were inside a single node process. So it's actually pretty great, to be honest. So for example, in this case, we have 3 services, each one is independently, and we have our catalog, which is the exact same things that we were talking before, and the inventory. Now with the inventory, we have our routes, which is just that, and the catalog is it calls the other service. Okay. And the other service is provided by this client here, which will essentially set things up correctly. So I could just cd runtime and do plt start. And if I reload my stuff here, sorry. And it's 3000, sorry. Here we go. It's essentially the same as before. Actually, we have actually simplified it further because we did not need the prefixes. So it's great, and they can be taken and split. There's a complete full independent microservices at this point, just running inside the same process, which makes it very straightforward to deal with it. So cool. Yes, this is all the stuff that I wanted to cover. Well, I have some extra goodies. So DNS, yes. Okay, so a few concepts that are very important that we need to talk about. Here. Please make yourself a favor and use Undici instead of whatever HTTP library that you are using today. Okay? Please make yourself a favor, especially if you're deploying on top of Kubernetes. Why? Well, Kubernetes DNS is a mess. Kubernetes DNS was designed to run Java applications. Java has a DNS resolver that performs internal caching. So basically Java has its own little DNS server within Java itself. Node.js instead, and a lot of other libraries like Python and so on, do not have that. Every time you do a DNS query, it actually does a DNS query. And using a library called CRS underneath. But that is a fundamental problem. And when you're setting up your Node app and you're doing microservice calls and so on, these can be so much painful and so much problematic that can essentially bring your cluster to a crawl and you don't even know why. And you just see the management server of Kubernetes skyrocketing in CPU usage because you're doing all those DNS queries to them and causing massive delays. They're not built to handle such DNS traffic. So what you want is you want to cache those DNS queries, but to be honest, you don't even want that. What you want is you want to establish a TCP connection between your servers and keep that TCP connection going. Undici provides that for you out of the box, okay? And it has embedded mocking if you need it. It provides a connection pool. It's actually significantly faster than HTTP.request or Axios.request. You pick the modules 2x faster, okay? It's great. Just use this. Make yourself a favor, use this, okay? Undici is what is behind the fetch implementation in Node. However, fetch is significantly slower than Undici and HTTP.request. The team is busy making that faster. It's not due to the Undici core. Undici is actually very fast. It's because of the whole fetch implementation on top that is actually really slow, okay? It's slow mostly because we implemented it in JavaScript and probably we shouldn't have to do that. Anyway, it's a long story. But the result is it's slow. So team is being, I think we made 20-25% faster in the upcoming release of Node, but it's still slow, okay? So hopefully that makes some sense for you. Now, the next one up is do not trash your Node.js event loop. Now, trashing the event loop is one of the major source of performance issues. No, Undici is not standard compliant. Well, it's standard compliant compared to HTTP, not to fetch. So the fetch implementation is standard compliant, yes. So you can think about this, okay. So the next topic is trashing your event loop. And this is one of the most critical bits that this is one of the most biggest mistakes that people do when using Node.js, and I really wanted to cover it as part of this class. So basically, the event loop trashing is what destroys all Node.js application all the time. Typically, it happens when your Node.js process has more CPU work scheduled than the cycles available to it in that unit of time. This is a lot of complicated mumbo jumbo. You'll probably get I have an example, and I show the example, you will get the example. But going a little bit more formal, let's talk about this for a second. So let's say that you have 100 requests coming to your server, and your server can only process 30 in a second, okay? You have 100 requests coming and 30 requests that you can process. Now, to process all 100 requests, you will need 3 seconds. What happens if more requests arrives to your server? Well, they will be delayed, right? If the server is being kept under pressure, your request will start timing out. Mostly because the user will say, whatever, I'm reloading or doing whatever stuff I needed to do. So this is part of the problem. And if this continues, the server might not even ever recover because people keep hammering it, scheduling work, and then go away. So I'm scheduling work, and then I'm stopping doing anything for a bit and just go away. So I don't know. This is not great for any internal purposes. So how do we fix this? Well, let me show you how does this work first. So cd Masterclass, cd thrashing. Okay. So we have our server. This is a Fastify server, and no Node.js application all Node.js applications suffer from this, so don't worry. Fastify, Express, whatever, is part of how you code your app. So typically, your normal route is composed of a database query, which we simulate just doing a sleep, and then a for loop that simulates a CPU intensive task. Can be anything mildly CPU intensive. Even typically, this is one of the things that happens a lot with rendering HTML, doing server-side rendering, doing all those kind of stuff. Creates this kind of problematic pattern. Now, okay, we are here. Now, how do you? Let's show you what happens in this case. So we need a few panels to get this done. First of all, we need htop to. Well, let me do it differently then. Htop, let's do htop at the bottom so that you can see the CPU going. And 70% is OBS, but we'll see Node going very quickly up. So we run our server, crashing. We run our server, and then I have we can go here. And we have in our package.json, we have two scripts. We have the hammer and the hammer2, and we are going to use the first hammer, okay, to test this up. The first hammer takes 100 connection and run 10,000 requests to it. So npm run hammer, and we are hammering our server with 100 connection for 10,000 requests. And will print we time out after 1 second because the user yes, this computer is a monster. It has 64 gigabyte of RAM and a lot of CPUs. Yes, absolutely. It's a little bit of a monster, but if you do compilations and things, you want a monster probably. So it's great. To develop Node.js, doing all sorts of things, is a great machine. I can do streaming and load testing at the same time. I have enough power. Look, this is great. Okay. Look at how long this test is taking. And mostly the test is taking so long because it's timing out. A lot of those are timing out. So it's taking a long time. It's not stuttering, my computer. It's doing super well. It's not really under a lot of load. So hopefully the stream is stuttering. Oh, Dan, sorry. So here we go. Really? Here we go. Okay, so what happened here? And you see that now you see my server, my load testing is finished, but the server keeps spinning. It's still spinning. Look at it. The server is is still spinning, and now it's finished. But it was still spinning after I finished. Now, if you look at it, if you look at let's look at the response data. Okay, the response data is telling us that the requests we got were great, but we only got 28 responses out of 10,000. We got only 28 responses from my server because the event loop was thrashing. This is super bad. Okay. So it's here we have 10,000 errors. How can we do things differently? Like, this makes no sense. How can we have used Fastify, we used everything. So no. So what we can do? Well, there is a nice module that I wrote and I maintained for a few time under the Fastify organization called Under Pressure, that allows you to protect for that. So it allows you to specify the max event loop delay, max event loop utilization data, also RAM and stuff like that, that you can use to protect your server, okay, to do some of the stuff. So going through it, okay, let's look at it, how it's used. So in this case, we can do the... you folks are fantastic, okay? I have people watching this from Murder. It's great, okay? So you take the under pressure module and you specify an event loop delay and a max event loop utilization. You can put any numbers here, most of the time is fine. And we run the same code, okay? So let's see how it's set up. So we run our server protected and we run the hammer again. And now let's see if all works, considering everything. Now you will see that this will complete a lot of time faster. Whoa, it just finished immediately. Why? Well, because they didn't time out. Okay, most of those did not time out. So look at the difference. Okay, now we got 28 responses and 9,503, which is a hell of a lot better than getting a timeout. Okay, so this is exactly what you should be doing. It's you want your server to detect that it's under load, and instead of accepting any more requests that it cannot process, just throw them away and give back a 503. 503 is a special error code that your load balancer knows to route the request somewhere else. Okay, so this is actually very, 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 very interesting. So I could actually tell, I cannot handle this, go to another server. Typically, your load balancer is actually pretty smart, and when you see this kind of pattern and also the else check failing, will tell you, hell, I am spinning up more servers, okay? Basically, this is the solution, okay? The Node.js system, your Node.js app needs to tell your load balancer and your cloud, this server is at load, please spin up more servers, okay? And we can tell, it can be very precise in telling, okay? Essentially, in this case, the hammer hits with 100 requests, and in 1 second, more or less, it can react and says, no, I am under load, bye-bye, okay? Now, it is the catch. Let's see, we have hammer 2, okay? Can we do better than this, okay? Because in this case, we got a lot of timeouts, but we didn't have a lot of requests, okay? Can we do better? Well, let's try to do the second hammer. If we use the second hammer, it's the second hammer runs 1,000 connections for 20 seconds. And this is, again, with a timeout of 1 second. Now, it's actually okay, and I am expecting very similar results to the previous test. Because, I am actually even worse to some extent, because I'm still getting a lot of timeouts here, because the other one was because I'm hammering it with 1,000 connections now, not 100, which is whoa, a lot of them. Okay, can we do better though? Yes, we can. Okay, because you can even make your code load aware. So this is actually a very pro technique that I added up here today to show it to you this afternoon. So basically, you can essentially disable the base logic of under pressure in this way, and actually handle it in code. And as you can see here, you could do if we are under pressure. If we are not under pressure, we do the expensive task. Otherwise, we can use a cached value. Nice, right? Whatever that cache value is. So how does this change our application? And we can run the second hammer to see the difference, okay? And we are hammering our server. 20 seconds. Poor server, yeah, I know. Now, got most of the same data, but the actual... Oh, it was different when I tested it. This is actually don't do load testing while on stream. So it works on my machine, yeah. Yeah. Show the htop output, yes. Okay, so 5, I'm running this, and 6, now the htop is running, okay? And here we go. Yeah. The demo gods, yes. I challenge them all the time. And here we go. If I run this again, it's still spinning like there's no tomorrow. Here we go. Now, you see the difference, okay? I'm actually increasing the time, and you can start seeing the difference. So in this load aware, you see that the number of responses increased a lot. Now we still get a lot of timeouts because the server is actually under a lot of pressure and it starts crapping out a little bit. But you see that we start letting a lot of requests pass through now. So anyway, this is, if I lower my count to, let me lower it to 100. So possibly now this should work more or less in a way that makes some sense. And so, by the way, I have this slide for you. So the server is actually running very well. And it actually went down. Like, again, it's not even 100%. It's actually shedding all the load. And now we got 680. We got a lot of things through, which we were not getting before. So anyway, it's actually a very powerful combination, especially if you're doing a server-side rendered app. You could do server-side rendering, but if things goes bad, you could say, oh no, but I'm not doing any server-side rendering anymore. It is your index.html file, render it on the client. You'll probably be faster. It's a powerful technique, works very well. I did that fix. I helped the team at American Express on the One App framework to do exactly that, and it worked so well. So yeah, was very happy about it. Anyway, this is a super powerful technique, so keep in mind on your app. So on all of this, I think I am good. I have covered. I have more or less 10 more minutes. This is a good question. So this first class, I thought this masterclass will be the same as November 22, but it become more amazing. Yes, I have added a bit more content here. So there'll probably be another edition at some point, which will add even more content if I can. So slides will be available. Slides are available or will be available. And hello, folks. If you got any questions whatsoever on the topic, so hopefully this is a good moment to ask any questions that you might like or not like at the topic. Before we go, please check out Platformatic. Okay, so this is actually one of the reasons why we do this. So please check us out and see if we can help streamline your development. If you need some help in why should I use Fastify or Platformatic instead of Express or whatever, how do you convince my boss? I have a good slide deck for that, so please ask me. Okay, we'll be very, very happy to talk to you about it. So here we go. So yeah. So is it easy to migrate from Express? Yes, it's easy. I think it's easy, but you know. Amazing, yeah. Ping me. I can. If you organize me a meeting with your boss, I will be very happy to talk to your boss about using Fastify or Platformatic. So thank you, folks. Thanks, Camilo, Sek, Bogdan. Yay. And thanks, folks. A lot of people thanking and so on. Oh, hi, Simon. Thank you. Can you give some overview about Platformatic? Oh, you've been using Fastify since 2 weeks. Amazing. Okay. You can use Prisma with Platformatic if you want. There's no problem to use Prisma. You can just set it up just to run Prisma and so on and so forth. So, bye! A lot of people. Do you have any thought about Drizzle ORM? So Drizzle is actually an interesting approach. So Drizzle ORM, it's an interesting approach. Let me explain. It's an interesting approach. Look at it, okay? The key fact, so it has a few bits that I don't like, and a lot of stuff that that it's okay. So the nicest part about Drizzle, Drizzle is this new ORM, and it has one of the things that it's great at is that you can you do this infer model, right? And you get automatic models out of the tables, which is great. Now, it suffers from part of this problem is that you see it's all automagic here. So the connection, where is the connection? Okay, like how is this PG table aware of my connection? And how are things set up? I don't know. I don't know. It leaves me a little bit concerned. So yes, it reminds you a lot of Dot. Yes, it's the same concept of Dot, I would say. It has Dot schema generation too. Okay, a lot of questions. And the question about Kisly. Keasley is another, like, truth to be told, I'm not a fan on any of those, so I prefer to use most of the time what's the name of this? It's Ciao Francesco, and Keasley is a query builder. It's nicer, I think, than the other one. Documentation website. Okay, docs. How can I getting started? Yes. Again, I don't like this. Okay, it is the problem. I don't like defining tables and stuff within your code. I think the source of truth of a database schema should be the database files. Okay, so you should write your things using SQL, not TypeScript. And if you don't, you end up in trouble. But on the other hand, it's actually fun to use. So, you know, I think the database is a source of truth, not your app. So the database is responsible for storing data and the schema. Therefore, it's you want to update that and so on. So at least this is my 2 cents, but other people think differently, so it's great. Did you cover why you're not recommending Mongoose? No, I am not, but I can explain why I'm not recommending Mongoose. Mongoose. So Mongoose is one of the worst evil of things of Node.js. The problem of Mongoose is this sentence that they have. Okay, so you know MongoDB, right? MongoDB is a document database. So you store documents in Mongo. And for a long time, it didn't have joins. Now, at some point, they added a join-like feature. And the Mongoose team decided, well, Mongoose does not have joins, but we will implement joins within our ODM. Now, this takes all the science and all the research that was done on database development and burn them. And this is completely against all things in computer science. So don't do this, okay? Essentially. And don't use Mongoose. Implementing joins inside your application and not in the database is a massive performance bottleneck that will destroy your servers at anything but minimum load. So please don't use Mongoose. I've seen companies struggling so hard to make it work at scale. So don't make this choice. MongoDB is a fantastic database. Use the MongoDB driver directly. It's fantastic. You don't need anything like Mongoose. So please don't use Mongoose. Now, okay, I keep going. Biggest feature is nested query. Is the opposite of not doing join? Not necessarily. You can implement nested queries on GraphQL using the data loader pattern, and that will simplify all the things. So no, you can do GraphQL with nested queries and not have you destroy your systems. Okay. Okay. So what's your pro advice to build schemas? Well, to build schemas, the most fancy thing that you can use these days is this library called Typebox, or hopefully you meant URL schemas. So this is great. It's a great way to create OpenAPI schemas. If you're writing things in your database, well, the best way to build database schema is probably to ask ChatGPT to do it for you. It has ingested all the knowledge of SQL and all the books about SQLs of the world. It's great. So maybe just ask it. You mean, so that there is Gilgamesh is saying, you mean it will be better if we generate types from SQL files? I prefer that approach, and this is what we are using in Platformatic DB. So Platformatic DB is a tool that generates you, can help you generate APIs quickly from your database, and we also generate our APIs straight. We can also generate all the types from the database so that you can actually use it to query the stuff. So yes, that's what we do in Platformatic. And this is my how I prefer to do it, and I think that the situation. Oh, you are a maintainer of Mongoose, Zlopak. Sorry, I am. I'm so sorry. Please change that sentence, please change this sentence. I didn't know, so good. Sorry. But you didn't create it, okay, to begin with. Populate is the worst thing possible. So I can welcome you on stage. We can debate Mongoose, so if you want to. And it was even worse at the beginning because it said that they did their thing. This page was even worse at the beginning. So yeah, okay, perfect. Okay, amazing. It's okay. Yeah, there is nothing bad to the maintainers of Mongoose, okay? All libraries that have that much traffic is great. I'm just mentioning on the fact that the original design, when you the problem of here is you should not design your MongoDB database like it's a relational database, and Mongoose make that simple, and this is the problem. So there is one more question here. Do you wrap your routes in a Fastify plugin typically? My answer to that is no, you should not really write your routes typically, okay? So you don't need to, I don't wrap your routes on Fastify plugin, no. I typically only wrap things in my Fastify plugin that I need to reuse across the stuff. Is this video going to be on YouTube? Big question. I don't know. First of all, it goes to Filippo, and Filippo will then edit it and cut it and do stuff. I don't know if we're going to split into multiple chunks or it will just be a private video link that you can access. I don't know. This is a question that I don't have a good answer for, so we'll see. Is it possible to use MongoDB on Platformatic? Not yet, but it's in the plans. So it's in the plans. So you will be able to use MongoDB with. So you can use Fastify MongoDB to get a MongoDB driver, and everything will work as expected. Okay. But if you want the automatic Platformatic DB route system and so on and so forth on top of MongoDB collections, that will come. But I just need to have some time to code it, and things have been very hectic. Doing a startup is hard. So this was packed by information, hopefully. So hopefully you liked it. You will all receive an email with the link to the video, I think. So when is this video uploaded anywhere? What's the best approach to protect routes in Fastify? What do you mean by what is the best approach to protect routes in Fastify? I don't know. So when to use Fastify and when to use Platformatic? Well, Platformatic is some good scaffolding on top of Fastify. So typically, if you don't know how to set up your Fastify application and you just want to get started, you can just use Platformatic. It also handles TypeScript compilation for you, which can be tricky to set up. Fastify on Rails, that's Platformatic. Thank you for getting it. So let's see. Let's see. MongoDB can be added with Platformatic. How about Redis? Same thing. You could do with Redis. Platformatic DB will not support it, but you can use Platformatic. You can just use any Fastify plugin available, and we have Fastify MongoDB, Fastify Redis, all the things. Comparison between Nest.js and Platformatic DB. Okay, no, I'm going to compare Nest.js with Platformatic. So Platformatic is a good system to build APIs, typically in microservice world, and or in simplifying the development of multiple decoupled components. These Platformatic enables quickly to move things around and do this kind of modular development that I talked about. Nest is a great system to build monoliths. So if all you need is monolith, you could do it with Platformatic, you could do it with Nest. If you want to do a system that can be split into multiple components, multiple libraries, multiple things, Platformatic is probably a better solution. Platformatic DB is different from Nest, is more similar to a component like Azure or PostgreSQL, for example, that the Platformatic DB allows you to create APIs quickly from your server, from your database, and it's just a breeze. So hooks and plugins is just the same. Okay, so decorators, hooks, and plugins, they all go together essentially, so you use them all the time. Go straight for Platformatic if you want. If you need to wander, go straight for Platformatic, will not be wrong. What technique do you recommend when the migration folder becomes enormous? This is a good problem to have. Okay, it's probably going to be a long time to talk. Any hint on the roadmap for GraphQL in Platformatic Composer? We have started working on it today. So we are working on it today. My colleague is started working on it today. So we'll see it in a second. Just a second, folks. I need to pick this up. Pronto? Sono ancora live, ma sto chiudendo in un secondo e arrivo. Ok? Ciao ciao. Hai bisogno? Ok, arrivo. Sì, chiamo. Quando ho fatto chiamo. Ciao ciao. So folks, it's 7:35 and I am being recalled and I need to go and feed my daughter. So hopefully, what's for dinner? Pizza. We're going for pizza tonight, so that's why. And this is amazing. So thank you very much for joining, and please, if you have any more questions, right here in the general channel, I will try to go through them very quickly later on or tomorrow, or ping us on Twitter. We'll try to reply. So thank you very much for joining, and I think we're done. Okay. We'll let you know if I get an answer for it. So there's probably a question that I missed. So it's please shout that question in the general channel or somewhere. I'll try to get you an answer. And now I really need to go. So thank you very much for coming, and see you soon. Bye.